The story opens in a mountain village at dusk, where a villager urgently calls out to the others, warning them that night is falling and urging everyone to hurry home as it's no longer safe. He advises them to light incense and lock their doors to prevent the old black snake from sneaking into their homes. Another man, carrying a basket on his shoulder, tells a companion that he heard the old black snake had devoured 2 more people at the mountain god's temple a few days ago, one of them even a Taoist priest. He adds that while there have been no recent reports of people being eaten, many chickens and ducks have disappeared from the village. Elsewhere in the village, a son suggests to his father that they should bring their chickens inside the house for the night, even if the smell will be unpleasant, as it's better than losing them. The father agrees, saying that if the old black snake eats them, it would be a great loss. As the father and son walk away, the father suddenly feels a chill and wonders aloud if the weather has been growing colder. Inside the house that the father and son just left, a pair of glowing eyes emerge from the shadows, revealing the presence of the old black snake, the very creature the villagers fear. This snake, however, is not just the monster they speak of, but the protagonist of our story. As he slithers quietly around the statues and furniture, he reflects on his fragmented memories, realizing that he doesn't remember much about his past. He doesn't see himself as particularly frightening, though he acknowledges that the 2 deaths the villagers are talking about were indeed his doing. A flashback takes us to that moment. A man had been crying out for help, shouting that human elixirs were meant to replenish cultivators and accusing someone of stealing his herbs. Desperate, the man knelt before the mountain god statue, pleading for salvation. Back then, the snake couldn't understand human speech, but the man's agony and desperation were clear. Out of a sense of pity, the snake decided to end the man's suffering by devouring him. While he was eating, another person burst into the temple, screaming for the snake to release the precious human elixir he had nurtured for 10 years. The snake thought this person, too, seemed to be in great distress, so he ended his suffering as well by swallowing him. At the time, the snake believed he was reuniting 2 tormented souls, unaware of the profound consequences his actions would have. After consuming both men, the snake unexpectedly gained wisdom. Not only did a demon core form within him, but he also developed intelligence. From that moment on, he began to learn about the many dangers and terrifying things in the world he had been oblivious to before. It turns out that the black-robed men who once hunted him are part of a group known as the Snake Hunters, cultivators from the snake hunting sect. Our protagonist, the old black snake, once witnessed these hunters besiege a large flower python, making him realize just how powerful human cultivators can be. Through cultivation, these humans can constantly improve their strength, advancing from the chi refining stage to the foundation establishment stage, then to the core formation stage, and ultimately to the nascent soul stage. The snake's previous escapes were due more to his ignorance and fearlessness, but now that he has gained intelligence, he understands the gravity of the situation. Surviving against these terrifying cultivators will be his greatest challenge. Preying on larger creatures like raptors and humans has become far too risky. He knows that if he wants to survive, it's safer to target smaller prey, like poultry. However, even though he's hungry again, chickens and ducks no longer satisfy him, and they've become harder to steal with the villagers on high alert. As the snake contemplates his next move, he recalls hearing rumors about a wealthy family in Chenjia town that raises pigs. Intrigued by the thought, he decides it's worth investigating. As he slithers toward the exit, he pauses in front of some paintings of humans. He reflects on how humans love to give names to everything and thinks that perhaps he should have a name too. Studying the painting more closely, a memory surfaces. He likes the old story of the human Xu Hei. The villagers call him the old black snake, but he decides that Xu Hei would be the perfect name for himself. Later that night, Xu Hei arrives at the wealthy family's estate, where pigs are kept. As he peers through the fence, he confirms that he's found the right place. The pigs are sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger. Towering over the fence in a predatory stance, Xu Hei sizes up the pigs, realizing their plump bodies will be quite filling for him. Glancing around, he notices that the family has already gone to bed, giving him a clear opportunity to strike. Without hesitation, Xu Hei begins devouring the pigs whole. Some, startled by the sudden attack, squeal and scatter in fear, while others remain frozen in confusion. As the pigs' cries for help grow louder, Xu Hei, annoyed, mutters to them, "Stop squealing, or you'll attract the humans and get me killed." Realizing the squeals are too loud, he quickly swallows another fleeing pig to silence it. Satisfied but feeling overly full, Xu Hei realizes he may have eaten too much. His massive meal now needs time to digest, so he decides to curl up in the pigsty and rest, knowing he still has several hours before the humans awaken. After an hour of peaceful sleep, a pair of voices disrupt the stillness. One person urgently tells the other, "I told you we should have robbed the woman," but the other voice cuts in, "Shut up, Chen Fan doesn't seem to be breathing." As Xu Hei slept, he overheard the conversation between two men. One of them scolded the injured Chen Fan, blaming him for stealing his woman and crossing their young master, Qiu. The man instructed his companion to help him deal with Chen Fan, and as they approached the pigsty, Xu Hei woke up in a panic, realizing he had unintentionally fallen asleep. Knowing how terrifying humans could be, he slithered his way up a pillar and onto the roof of the pigsty, hoping to stay hidden. From his vantage point, Xu Hei watched as the men tossed Chen Fan's body into the pigsty. After checking for any signs of life, one of the men confirmed that Chen Fan was dead. The other, in a cold and indifferent tone, suggested that dead bodies like this one could be fed to pigs. As they left, one of the men remarked on the foul smell of the place, while the other, looking around, wondered if there were fewer pigs than before. Once the men had left, Xu Hei crept closer to the body of Chen Fan, peering at it from above. He questioned whether this was truly a dead person, remembering the superstitions about dead bodies bringing bad luck. Just as Xu Hei was considering making his escape, something unexpected happened. Chen Fan's eyes opened. Xu Hei was shocked and confused, wondering if the man had come back to life or if he was witnessing the rise of a zombie. To Xu Hei's further astonishment, Chen Fan sat up, coughing and laughing in a sinister, triumphant manner. It became clear that this was no ordinary situation. Chen Fan, now seemingly possessed by something or someone else, proclaimed that he had finally succeeded in seizing a body for rebirth. As he looked down at himself, he realized that the host of the body shared the same name as him, Chen Fan, which he found both amusing and fitting for his new existence. As Chen Fan examines his new body and its memories, he quickly deduces that he has inherited a broken engagement, a crippled body, and a destroyed dantian, which severely limits his cultivation. However, rather than feeling defeated, Chen Fan grins, remarking that since he has taken over this Chen Fan's body, he will avenge him. From his vantage point on the roof, Xu Hei is utterly confused, unsure of who Chen Fan is talking to. He listens carefully, though, as Chen Fan declares that none of those who humiliated him will escape his vengeance. When Chen Fan stands up, he assesses the damage to his body, acknowledging that if he hadn't taken over, the original Chen Fan would have surely died. Despite this, he dismisses the injuries as trivial, confident that they are no obstacle for him. While Chen Fan mutters to himself, Xu Hei, still watching from above, is growing increasingly anxious. He desperately hopes that Chen Fan doesn't notice him, wishing he could disappear like John Cena, unseen and unnoticed. Realizing this isn't a good place for him, Xu Hei knows he needs to escape before something goes wrong. But before he can make his move, Chen Fan spots him, causing Xu Hei to freeze in fear. Startled by being discovered, Xu Hei remembers Chen Fan's earlier claims of being an immortal and immediately panics. He begins to wonder if Chen Fan is a high-level cultivator, possibly even a snake hunter, and his anxiety grows. If Chen Fan really is a snake hunter, Xu Hei knows he's as good as dead. However, to Xu Hei's surprise, Chen Fan doesn't seem to care about him at all. To Chen Fan, Xu Hei is nothing more than a low-level spiritual beast at the first stage, not even worth his attention. Unbothered, Chen Fan sits down, positioning himself to begin cultivating. He remarks to himself that his primary focus is healing, and as he releases a surge of spiritual energy into the air, it radiates with enough force to intimidate Xu Hei. As Chen Fan begins cultivating, a massive golden aura erupts from his body, taking the form of a dragon. Chen Fan is caught off guard, astonished by the sudden manifestation, as he didn't expect the demon clan treasure, the Demon God Cauldron, to be reborn with his consciousness. He shouts toward the primordial dragon, accusing it of having miscalculated. Xu Hei, watching from above, is filled with dread. In his mind, this is the end. He believes the snake hunter has cast some powerful spell and is certain that Chen Fan has discovered he stole the pigs and now seeks to kill him. As the golden dragon radiates power, Xu Hei panics, realizing that he doesn't want to die. He contemplates if he should just return the pigs, but then remembers he's almost finished digesting them. Amidst his confusion and fear, Chen Fan continues shouting, declaring that heaven and earth are the board and all living beings are the pieces. Xu Hei, terrified and unsure of what to do, watches as Chen Fan continues to proclaim his ambitions, vowing to conquer the world and place everyone under his feet. But before Chen Fan can continue his boasts, Xu Hei, driven by desperation, decides there is no other way. In a moment of frantic resolve, Xu Hei leaps down from the roof, his jaws opening wide as he descends directly onto Chen Fan. Before Chen Fan can even react, Xu Hei swallows him whole, thinking to himself that Chen Fan had forced him into this situation. After gulping him down, Xu Hei is momentarily relieved that his plan worked, but he knows he can't let his guard down yet. Quickly slithering out of the pigsty, Xu Hei realizes just how dangerous the place has become. His thoughts racing, he knows he must escape immediately to avoid any further peril. As Xu Hei flees in desperation, Chen Fan, furious and unaffected by Xu Hei's digestion, remarks with disdain how a lowly spiritual beast at the first level has no idea what it is dealing with. Gathering his strength from within Xu Hei's body, Chen Fan questions why Xu Hei would dare attack him when he had been given the chance to flee, suggesting that Xu Hei is courting death. Without hesitation, Chen Fan unleashes his infinite ocean technique, causing Xu Hei to scream in agony as the spell ravages his insides, making him bleed. Despite the pain coursing through his body, Xu Hei is in disbelief that Chen Fan not only survived, but is capable of casting powerful spells from inside his stomach. Chen Fan, relentless, continues to assault Xu Hei's body from within. A powerful kick to Xu Hei's stomach lands a critical blow, and Xu Hei, writhing in pain, realizes that Chen Fan is far more dangerous than he ever imagined. In a desperate attempt to gather himself, Xu Hei tries to remain calm, reminding himself that he still possesses his demonic core, the source of his power. But before Xu Hei can fully reassure himself, Chen Fan locates the core, shocking him. Panicking, Xu Hei tries to activate his protective shield, knowing it is his lifeblood. However, the shield proves insufficient. Chen Fan destroys the demonic core with a ruthless strike, causing Xu Hei to bleed profusely, his strength draining rapidly. As he stumbles to the ground, severely wounded and barely able to move, Xu Hei's mind reels in horror at the realization of how powerful snake hunters truly are. In his final moments, Xu Hei screams in unbearable pain, feeling his life slipping away. He realizes with a crushing sense of inevitability that he is about to die. Immobilized, he is overwhelmed with regret. Having just awakened his consciousness and condensed a demon core, he cannot accept that his life is ending so soon. Xu Hei's mind races with bitter questions. Why did this have to happen to him? If he had known this would be the outcome, he would never have stolen that pig, nor would he have come to this place at all. As Xu Hei lay on the verge of death, Chen Fan continued to devour his insides, mocking Xu Hei's weakness and remarking how the snake's flesh would now replenish his energy. However, just as Xu Hei was about to perish, the Demon God Cauldron suddenly manifested, much to Chen Fan's surprise. The cauldron began reconstructing Xu Hei's shattered demonic core, leaving Chen Fan bewildered. He attempted to command the cauldron to stop and return to him, but to his shock, he found that he couldn't control it. Confused and panicked, Chen Fan questioned how this was possible, but the cauldron persisted, completing the restoration of Xu Hei's demonic core. As the demonic core was reassembled, a brilliant light erupted, momentarily blinding Chen Fan. As his vision cleared, the golden dragon from earlier, which had appeared during his cultivation, materialized once more. Chen Fan was left speechless, unable to comprehend why his Demon God Cauldron had absorbed the fragments of Xu Hei's demonic core. It dawned on him that perhaps Xu Hei was not an ordinary snake demon after all. This new realization sent a wave of dread through him as he speculated on the true nature of the beast he had been underestimating. Sensing the dire nature of the situation, Chen Fan prepared to flee. But before he could make his escape, the golden dragon unleashed a powerful beam of golden light directly at him. The impact was overwhelming, and Chen Fan screamed in agony as the light seared through him. Meanwhile, outside, Xu Hei's snake body began to dissolve, golden light spilling from his form, creating an awe-inspiring yet terrifying spectacle. As Chen Fan burned away within the golden light, he desperately protested, shouting that he was a dignified immortal and that such a fate was impossible. But his cries were in vain, and before he could act, he was vaporized into nothing but ashes. As the sun rose and the golden light slowly faded, Xu Hei's body, now nothing but a shell, dissolved with it. Xu Hei, feeling the loss of his demonic core completely, wept, knowing that everything he had fought for was now gone. The pigs around him, having survived the chaotic night, stared at him in a mixture of confusion and disbelief, as if stunned by what they had just witnessed. As the pigs roamed around Xu Hei's newly formed body, one of them began chewing on his tail, attempting to tear at his skin. Before it could cause any damage, Xu Hei angrily lifted the pig with his bruised tail and shouted at it, warning all the pigs not to bite his tail again. Furious, he threatened to devour them all if they dared to try again. The pigs, terrified by his outburst, scattered in panic, some stumbling as they fled. Xu Hei winced as he examined his bruised tail, cursing and shouting in pain at the pigs. Before he could let his anger consume him further, Xu Hei paused, his thoughts shifting to a deeper concern. He remembered that his demon core had been shattered by that immortal Chen Fan. The demon core was the very foundation of a demon beast's cultivation, and without it, survival, let alone cultivation, should have been impossible. Burdened by the weight of this realization, Xu Hei buried his face into the ground, despairing and shedding tears as he thought it was all over. But then, a puzzling thought struck him: why was he still alive if his demon core was shattered? Driven by curiosity and disbelief, he checked his body. To his astonishment, instead of finding his destroyed demon core, he discovered the Demon God Cauldron nestled within him, radiating a mysterious glow. Xu Hei was bewildered, questioning how the cauldron had ended up in the place of his core. The glowing cauldron left him with more questions than answers. As Xu Hei examined the cauldron inside him, he realized that it wasn't just replacing his core, it had given him an extraordinary new ability. He could now see inside his own body with clarity, and even more astonishingly, he could see the inner workings of the things around him. It dawned on him that this was divine perception, a rare ability only possessed by high-level cultivators. Xu Hei was thrilled to have this power, understanding that it would change everything for him. With this newfound divine perception, Xu Hei realized that he could now sense his surroundings even with his eyes closed. Excitement surged through him as he imagined how much easier it would be to hunt for food, avoid dangerous beasts, and steer clear of humans. Suddenly, Xu Hei realized that the Demon God Cauldron had granted him more than just divine perception. His mind was flooded with new knowledge, memories of cultivation techniques from Chen Fan's path poured into his brain. As he sifted through these memories, he felt overwhelmed, his head throbbing from the sheer volume of information. Yet, despite the discomfort, Xu Hei instinctively knew that this knowledge could help him heal. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he had a strong sense that whatever this was, it could restore his injuries. Determined, Xu Hei curled up and tried to imitate the meditation posture Chen Fan had used before. He recalled Chen Fan's words about heaven and earth being the chessboard, with all living beings as the pieces, and how his demon core would start to move during cultivation. As Xu Hei focused, his Demon God Cauldron began to absorb the energy from his surroundings. To his surprise, his injuries started to mend, the spiritual qi rapidly flowing into his body. After just a few minutes of practice, Xu Hei examined himself and was astonished to see his wounds already healing. His body felt rejuvenated, as if he had consumed spiritual herbs. Wrapping himself up in joy, Xu Hei realized that this cultivation technique seemed to focus primarily on enhancing his cultivation, with healing as a beneficial side effect. However, as he looked more closely at his body, he was reminded that his demon core was shattered. Storing spiritual qi without a core should have been impossible. This led him to wonder if the Demon God Cauldron had somehow taken the place of his demon core, a thought that felt both strange and unsettling. Still, Xu Hei decided not to dwell on it for now. He knew he needed to leave this dangerous place and find somewhere safe to rest for a few days before diving deeper into his cultivation journey. Xu Hei reminded himself that he could become stronger with time, but he shouldn't risk confronting humans so soon. However, before he left the area, Xu Hei realized that if he wanted to cultivate effectively, he needed to eat his fill first. After some time, Xu Hei found himself bathing under a waterfall, reflecting on the changes that had occurred since his first enlightenment after consuming the human pellet. Since that day, new knowledge had occasionally surfaced in his mind, and after devouring Chen Fan, this flow of information intensified, becoming more frequent with each passing day. One morning, a few days later, he finally understood what humans referred to as the cultivation system. To his surprise, he realized that demon beasts, like humans, had their own cultivation stages. Xu Hei discovered that the demon beast cultivation system mirrored the human one, with stages such as the spiritual stage, the establishment stage, the core formation stage, and the nascent soul stage. He recognized that his current level was at the peak of the first stage, the spiritual stage, which was equivalent to the peak of the qi refining stage in human cultivation. Understanding the system gave him a sense of purpose and ambition. Xu Hei had visions of powerful beasts who could split heaven and earth, and it stirred a deep yearning within him. He wanted to become such a beast. He knew that to stop being hunted and to live his life freely, he had to cultivate and grow stronger. Inside a secluded cave, Xu Hei continued his cultivation, repeating the phrase Chen Fan had uttered when he was alive. He had been practicing the mysterious art for several days and discovered that it did much more than just heal his injuries. The technique also improved his physique, cleared his meridians, and expelled impurities from his body. Remarkably, the cultivation process even caused him to shed his old skin, further strengthening him. A week had passed since Xu Hei began cultivating in earnest, and the changes to his body were profound. His horns had grown longer, curving elegantly from his head, and his scales had become harder and more resilient, gleaming with a majestic sheen. His entire appearance had transformed, making him look more powerful and regal, like a true demon beast on the path to greatness. However, Xu Hei grew increasingly frustrated as he examined his new body. After shedding his skin, instead of growing larger, he had somehow shrunk down to a mere 6 centimeters in length. He recalled that he had been 33 centimeters long before, and now he was tiny again, much to his irritation. He shouted in anger, questioning why he hadn't grown bigger after shedding his skin as he had expected. Just as he was seething over his small size, a bird, about the same size as him, appeared nearby. Instinctively, Xu Hei struck it with his tail before it could flee, immobilizing it with surprising speed and precision. Without hesitation, he swallowed the bird whole. Despite his smaller size, he noticed that his speed, power, and reflexes had improved significantly. His body stretched effortlessly as he ate, and he realized that with enough effort, he could likely still devour larger prey. Xu Hei also felt a deep connection to the Demon God Cauldron, now certain it had fully become his new demon core. He could sense spiritual qi accumulating within it, and he knew he was on the verge of breaking through to the next stage. However, he also realized that the energy consumption of his cultivation art was immense. The technique allowed him to absorb heaven and earth's spiritual qi, but merely absorbing it wasn't enough. He needed resources, something more substantial to fuel his breakthrough. As he pondered his next move, he spotted a wild boar in a nearby field, chomping down on watermelons. The boar was large and formidable, but Xu Hei was undeterred. Although dangerous, especially with its size, Xu Hei knew that according to the cultivation system, he was now at the peak of the first spiritual stage. The boar, lacking any significant intelligence or cultivation ability, was weaker than him. Confident that he could overpower the beast with proper preparation, Xu Hei decided that the boar would make a perfect meal. Not only would it replenish his strength, but it would also give him the necessary energy to push through to the next stage of his cultivation. With his enhanced speed and power, Xu Hei prepared to strike, ready to claim his next meal. As Xu Hei crept down to the field, he grabbed a few rocks in preparation for his ambush, confident that the boar hadn't noticed him at all. But as he moved closer, the boar suddenly turned around, radiating a menacing aura that made Xu Hei sweat bullets. Panic surged through him, and he sarcastically muttered to himself, questioning if the watermelon the boar was eating was that good. The boar let out a fierce roar, and Xu Hei's confidence shattered. He turned and bolted, screaming in fear and yelling for the boar to stay away, questioning why it was so terrifying. Before Xu Hei could run far, he found himself facing the cliff he had just climbed down. With nowhere to go and no other options, he knew he couldn't keep running. Resolving himself, he realized that it was either fight or die. Gritting his teeth, Xu Hei grabbed the rocks he had collected and threw them at the boar with all his might, hoping to at least injure it and buy himself some time to think of another plan. To his surprise, the rock pierced straight through the boar's body, and the beast collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Xu Hei stood frozen, stunned by what had just happened. He questioned if the boar was truly dead and marveled at his own strength, wondering if he really was that amazing. But he kept his distance, cautious. Knowing that wild boars could be clever, Xu Hei suspected that it might be playing dead. He collected more rocks and threw them at the motionless boar, striking it again and again to ensure it wasn't faking. After repeatedly confirming that the boar wasn't moving, Xu Hei let out a long sigh of relief, confident that it was truly dead this time. Recalling how close he had come to being killed, Xu Hei realized just how lucky he had been. To be absolutely certain the boar wouldn't somehow come back to life, like Chen Fan had done, Xu Hei decided to slice the boar into parts, dismembering it to prevent any surprises. Feeling safe at last, Xu Hei ate the boar with newfound confidence, enjoying his victory. As he devoured the meat, he commented to himself on how much firmer the boar's flesh was compared to pigs, finding its taste both interesting and satisfying. As Xu Hei continued consuming the boar, he suddenly felt something uncomfortable in his mouth. Spitting it out in confusion, he was shocked to see that it was a demon core. Surprised, he realized the boar he had just devoured wasn't an ordinary one but a demon beast. Demon cores contained volatile and violent energy, and Xu Hei knew that consuming them raw could cause one's body to explode, potentially killing him. The proper way to absorb such power was by refining the core into a pill, but Xu Hei had no idea how to do that. He pondered for a moment, remembering that in the wild, beasts often consumed both the body and the core of their prey. If eating demon cores raw truly caused beasts to explode, then they would have gone extinct long ago. Xu Hei realized that much of his knowledge about demon cores came from humans, and the physiology of beasts and humans was likely different. With renewed certainty, he concluded that he should be able to consume the core without refining it. Filled with determination, Xu Hei opened his mouth wide and lunged at the demon core, struggling for a bit to swallow it whole. Once he managed to get it down, his stomach began to glow, and a wave of heat surged through his body. He immediately questioned whether the Demon God Cauldron within him was absorbing the demon core's force. The sensation intensified as the cauldron rapidly filled with the powerful energy of the core. Excitement bubbled within Xu Hei as he felt something familiar, a sensation he had experienced before. He knew what was coming. After the cauldron absorbed the core's energy fully, Xu Hei felt a powerful shift inside him. With a surge of exhilaration, he realized that he had broken through to the second spiritual stage, also known as the psychic level 2. Looking at his body, Xu Hei was thrilled to see 2 of his tail scales had turned golden, symbolizing his breakthrough. Filled with excitement, he tested his new power, striking a nearby rock with his golden-scaled tail. The force shattered the rock, and Xu Hei marveled at how strong and iron-like his new scales had become. Before he could relish the moment further, Xu Hei sensed something nearby. Looking up, he felt a sudden wave of dread as he spotted a human holding a weapon, staring directly at him. Xu Hei began to sweat bullets, his newfound strength clashing with his instinctual fear of humans.